Caroline Hilt, and I'm the Director of Communications for Canada Economic Development, which we will call CED from now on. We are here today to discuss our Strategic Plan 2021, a plan that will guide CED's actions over the next 5 years. We will answer your questions on the YouTube chat thread or by email in a few minutes. You can send your questions using the contact information at the bottom of the screen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Marie-Chantal Girard, who's the Vice President of our Policy and Communications sector. Hello, Marie-Chantal.
Hello, Caroline. Hello, everyone.
So first of all, could you please explain what a strategic plan is for CED?
Yes, a strategic plan is a guide. It directs the actions of the organization over the coming years, and it establishes results in advance so we make sure we stay on course along the way. A strategic plan also allows us to make choices as we move further into its realization. And finally, I would mention that a strategic plan is an excellent communication tool. It's a good communication tool for our employees to make sure that we all work towards the same goal, but it's also an excellent communication tool with our clients and our partners who know what we're working on and what types of projects we will be looking for in the years to come.
Thank you. So I believe we set 4 objectives in our strategic plan. I suggest we go through them to understand what's involved. So can you please tell us about the first objective?
I can do that, but I would take a minute ahead of time just before we start to explain to you how we came up with those 4 objectives. We undertook a very rigorous analysis. First, we made sure that we spoke to experts on the ground in order to identify the needs and the assets that the regions and that the businesses have so we could build on those in the years to come. We also updated our knowledge of the current economic trends, both in Quebec, which is important of course, but as we know, the economy, most of economic sectors now are very much integrated on the global scale. So it was important also to better understand and make sure that our knowledge was up to date on the world scene. We looked at our previous investments as well to learn as much as we could from those activities. And finally, as we were developing our own strategic plans, our colleagues in other federal departments were working on various initiatives, for example, on the skills and innovation agenda, which we made sure that our results would contribute to as well, and including the overall Government of Canada's priorities.
Thank you. The second objective of our plan has to do with Cleantech. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I can tell you about Cleantech, but first let me tell you about the growing and innovation of businesses in the economy. We want, this is our first objective, and it's really, really key to what we want to undertake in the years to come. As we know, if we want to remain competitive, we need to innovate more. All of the data demonstrate, direct us in that direction. So we will focus on business growth and innovation, and this will be key, according to us, to building a strong economy in all of the regions of Quebec, because we are present in all of the regions with our business offices, but also create some good and sustainable jobs. We have an economy of SMEs. So for us, if we want to remain competitive, it's absolutely essential that the SMEs and the regions take that innovation turn and they go digital as well. So we have some strategic goals on in that objective. First, we will aim at supporting businesses and regions through experts in the field, for example, incubators or industrial clusters that provide support to SMEs in that regard. We could also fund projects that represent a greater risk because when we look at their structure, but also in which field they're situated, they're operating, they show a very high promise and growth potential. We will support commercialization of innovation, and finally projects that are in innovative fields such as the digital, as I mentioned, but it could be also in the information and communication technologies, or the security of projects, could be good examples of that as well. Our targets here, because this is an innovation of our strategic plans. We don't only ask SMEs and regions to be innovative. We committed for the first time through this plan, the 2021 strategic plan, to achieving very clear and quantitative targets. So that's a first for us. We will be looking by 2021 to have supported at least 600 projects with a strong innovation component, and we are also looking at including registering over 200 companies into the Accelerated Growth Service. The Accelerated Growth Service, AGS, is a new service that we put in place in this year that is coordinated by SED in Quebec regions, and that basically puts all of the federal partners that can support SMEs at a point or another in their development cycles to make sure that we have a tight web of programs and services, and that we really push them forward in terms of growth and job creation. Now, our second objective.
I was eager to get to the Cleantech subject. It's quite exciting.
Yes, here we want to support businesses and regions both in the development and in the adoption of clean technology. Because for us at SED, the environment and the protection of our environment and economic development can go hand in hand. We will aim at investing over $125 million over the 5 years by 2021 in, for example, the greening of businesses. It can be the green infrastructures, or to build within SMEs the capacities in this field. We know in Quebec we have a few sectors that are already extremely well positioned. We're very strong in that area and we want to do more, for example in wind technologies or biomass residual. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And now what about the third objective?
The third objective is to support communities to promote their economic diversification and the participation in inclusive economy. So we know, as I was mentioning before, we have an economy that relies in majority on small and medium businesses, mostly. But the economic performance of our region varies quite a bit from one region to another, and the industrial fabric is also quite different from one part of the territory to another. So SED, the vision of SED here is really to work from the field up and make sure that we build on the assets of each of these regions to make sure that the economic actors are mobilized and that they're really pushing forward their diversification and they're thriving to their greatest potential. Our business offices that I was mentioning earlier that are present in each of the regions can certainly play a role in that. They are facilitators on the ground, and they can bring together the different economic actors to do so. So we want to make that shift and help them work to their full potential, achieve their full potential. Here we have targets. So what we will be aiming at is to provide direct support to 10 regional county municipalities in their recovery or diversification efforts over the coming years. more concretely, we want to generate throughout the various regions the equivalent of $1 billion in investments and maintain or attract at least $5 billion in foreign investment. As I said, we also want to work with the assets of each of the regions, and we know that tourism can be a way to attract investments and attract tourists. So here our targets are to attract over 32 million tourists from outside Quebec by 2021, which is in dollars, we would want to see investments of over $17 billion in spending. So it would translate, hopefully, in $17 billion in spending. So we will work with partners to undertake that work. For example, through our Community Futures program or other organizations on the ground, and make sure everybody is at the table to achieve that.
Talking about everybody at the table, could you please tell us about what's planned for Indigenous peoples?
Yes, we would want to foster greater participation of Indigenous people in the economic growth of Quebec region, either by encouraging entrepreneurship or through social innovation. We know that the Indigenous population is growing fast, and they have a strong interest in entrepreneurship in several of the Indigenous communities. So there's enormous potential there, and we want to be more active in that area and be a key partner to support this development. So in order to do it well, and following on the first discussions that we had with them during our dialogue last year, we will set a mechanism, a working group, if we want, with each of the communities that wishes to do so, to better understand what the barriers are, to make our programs better known to these communities, and see perhaps if we need to be more flexible with the implementation of our programs, terms and conditions, or funding criteria. But first, we need to understand better where the barriers are and how we can really provide a targeted response here. Our goal is to have supported over 40 economic development projects by 2021.
Thank you. That was quite a tour of our 4 key objectives. Now we received a few questions by email, and I just want to remind you at the bottom of our screen, you can see how you can send us your question. So let's start with this one. I've been a SED client for many years. I have a project with you. I want to buy a bagger to improve the productivity of my plant. Does my project fit with your plan? Have your programs and criteria changed?
Thank you for the question. Interesting. I'm not an expert in bagging technology, but this question provides me with the opportunity to make the connection between the strategic plan and our program. As I mentioned, we will support and we will invest over the year in projects that allow us to grow SMEs and to allow regions to thrive economically. So our programs and their eligibility criteria have not changed. As I mentioned, the plan gives us the direction forward, but the tools in our toolkit, which are our programs, those haven't changed and the budgets remain the same. So if your project has an innovation component to it and really allows you to take a step forward, well, I would invite you to visit your business office and discuss with a business advisor to see if it meets the criteria. But also, you will see that each business office has developed a regional intervention strategy coming from the strategic plan, following the strategic plan, to ensure that it's really adapted to those assets and challenges I was talking about earlier. So you can have that discussion with your business advisor.
Thank you. That's interesting. The next question, because you mentioned we held consultations to develop the plan. So this
Right.
question is related to that. So I took part in a roundtable discussion as part of your engagement strategy. I suggested that a showcase be created for federal programs to give us a better idea of what they have to offer in terms of funding. I don't see anything like that in the interventions you identified.
I remember that suggestion, and actually we heard a variation of that need being expressed throughout our dialogue. I think the way we took that need that was expressed and translated it is via our accelerated growth service. What we're doing here is coordinating the service, and companies that show an interest and potential to grow can register in the service. I told you we had a target here, 200 companies, and what you get by entering the accelerated growth service is really a group of funding partners and that come with their program suites and ensure that based on the needs of your companies, we accompany you throughout your development, and we don't lose sight of you along the way. So for the business, it's also a way to be well informed on the various federal programs, because SED has a suite of programs, but what is interesting for a company is to be made aware of the overall services that we can provide.
Thank you. And now another interesting question. Will you have a supplementary budget to support these new initiatives?
As I explained, the strategic plan is really a guide. It's a compass, and it helps us make choices along the way. So SED wants to remain nimble and flexible in the way it operates. We really work with the projects that come from the various regions, communities, or SMEs, and we want to continue in that direction, because this business model seems to be responding to the needs of communities. So we've been told. We will be working with our regular programs and our regular budget for the implementation of this strategic plan. But as I mentioned, we also have the role of facilitator. And it's important to use us to our full potential in each of the regions. So I would invite our listener here to get in touch with their business office, because it's not only SED's program that they will have access to, but it's also the knowledge of the business advisor in our business office to know what else is available out there. And we know, just for example, through the Skills and Innovation Agenda, there are a whole new suite of programs available.
Thank you. And here's another one. Is SED withdrawing from tourism?
Our mandate is really economic regional development. So for us, an investment in a sector is really not the end in itself. It's a way that is productive and economically sound to generate growth and to generate wealth and employment in the regions. So it can happen that in certain regions it makes a whole lot of sense to invest in tourism, and in others we will see larger investments made in other sectors, because those are the assets that are present on that territory. So if you have a tourism project, I would invite you to discuss it with the business office. They will ask you if there is an innovation component to it, but that's certainly a conversation you can have. And you will recall in Objective 3 that I mentioned 2 targets with regards to tourism. Our 32 million tourists that we want to attract in the region. So that's the proof that we're not moving out of tourism, but it has to be innovative and it has to make sense according to where you are.
I think we have time for a last question, and it's related to funding. Will SED funding end up being more equitable among Quebec regions?
Interesting question. Let me explain the logic of our funding model. Our mission is to support economic growth of Quebec regions, paying particular attention to those where we see slow economic growth that is prevalent, or where there isn't sufficient opportunity to generate productive work, productive employment. So in addition to that, we have our regional intervention strategies that help us narrow in which areas it makes sense to invest in each of the regions. So for us, it's the way we distribute the funding is built on that knowledge and the needs expressed through each of the regions. And over the last few years, between 2011 or 2012 and 2016, if I'm not mistaken, it's over 40% of our budget that has been invested in regions or regional county municipalities that has shown slow growth, prevalent growth. So it's over the double of the demographic weight of those regions. And to validate if the model was working, we looked at the GDP per regions, and we saw over the years that 16 out of 17 administrative regions had seen their regional GDP increase. So for us and for me, that's a good sign.
Thank you, Marie-Chantal. Thank you so much. That was much interesting. And in a few words, what should we take away from all this?
I hope not in 140 characters. So the strategic plan 2021 wants it to be more inclusive, cleaner, and innovative. We will keep on supporting projects directly, but we are also there to help the awareness and to accompany business and regions on the ground. So please do not hesitate and come and visit us.
Thank you again, and thanks to you for being here with us today. And we invite you to join us or follow us on either Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.